What's going on, preppers? Economic prepper here. Hope that you're doing well. We're seeing more and more news come out about brewing crises, and I'm keeping a very close watch on these. I hope you guys are too. I know how smart you guys are, so I know that you're paying attention to what's going on here. You guys have watched my videos in the past. You guys have commented, and I'm reading your comments. I know you guys are very smart, so I don't question that at all. But what we're seeing here is this evolution of our financial system, and it's getting really, really scary here. And I'm personally preparing for, now I wouldn't say a systemic collapse. I wouldn't say a total financial or economic collapse, but there will be collapses or collapses or collapsi. I'm not sure how you pluralize collapse. Anyway, collapses, whatever. But the point is it's going to catch a lot of people off guard. And if history is any indicator, it's going to create a wave of financial problems for a lot of people. Markets will collapse in certain areas, and a lot of people are going to experience a lot of pain. A lot of people are going to become fearful. We see the cycle all the time. What happens is billionaire companies, billionaire organizations, corporations, they become billionaire organizations because they are some of the best preppers. They are some of the most prepared collections of individuals around, which is why they have some of the best bunkers. They have extensive plans that probably reach out generations ahead of their time. And we're seeing little bits and pieces of the implementation of their plans on a regular basis. And it's a slow process. And that's how most people get caught up, because they don't see the subtle differences, the subtle changes, and the law here, the law there, the social engineering techniques that they're implementing to. It's funny, like here in 2022, there's a lot of social engineering and social warfare that's being implemented, and it's not like a forceful, it's not like a forceful strategy like you might see in a quote communistic environment, where I can't believe how much noise these dogs are making, and why this woman is like shaking this bottle with probably loose change in it to entertain them. Sorry to be disturbed or distracted, but that's, anyway, whatever. So my point is they're some of the best preppers, and there's a lot that can be learned from them if you pay close attention. Now, what we're seeing here is we've seen recent data that came out that the number of people who are living paycheck to paycheck are increasing. And I mean, you see it when you go to Walmart, when you're in the grocery store, when you're on the, paying for your goods. Start seeing more and more people put items back, and you might find yourself as one of them. And that's okay, because it doesn't have to be that way. But if you recognize that that might be you, where you're struggling financially, the first thing is just to accept that, hey, there is a problem. If you don't know that there's a problem, there's no way you could fix it, because you don't know that it exists. It's kind of like a leak in your house. You can't fix a leak that you don't know about. But once you identify a leak, it's like, oh, okay, the leak's coming from that ceiling in the corner right there. I need to get that, drywall cut open, get to that leak, patch it, fix this problem. But if you don't admit that there's a problem, then obviously it can't be solved. Now, we're seeing record levels of paycheck to paycheck households, which is crazy. And what's even more startling is that we're seeing people with six-figure incomes, $100,000 a year income, reporting that they're living paycheck to paycheck. Matter of fact, one of the surveys I saw indicated that a substantial number of the people who were surveyed that said that they're living paycheck to paycheck, they earn over $100,000 a year. Now, if you got a calculator out, go ahead and pull your calculator out and punch in $100,000 or $100,000 and divide it by 12. That comes out to like, I think it's like $8,333 a month, if I remember correctly. I don't have a calculator right now, but Just think about the mathematics behind this. You take home, or maybe it's gross. So your gross is $8,333 a month. You take that home, and $8,333 in expenses go out. That is the definition of paycheck to paycheck. You live paycheck to paycheck. You don't have any extra to attempt to save and invest and get ahead. Well, you want to take it a step further? Even more shocking is that, and this is purely due to a lack of preparation, people who are making $250,000 a year were within this surveyed group of individuals, and many of them, it wasn't 60% of them, I forget what the percentage was, but can you imagine making $250,000 a year and you're still living paycheck to paycheck? Think about that for just one moment. I don't know how much $250,000 is per month. I don't know how much $250,000 per year breaks down to being per month, but you figure, okay, if $100,000 is $8,333, $250,000 is probably like $20,000 a month. So you're making $20,000 a month and you're living paycheck to paycheck. Now, obviously, some of these people could be living in high cost of living cities like New York, which is also a very high supply chain problem ridden city, where you have a very high number of people in the population raiding the grocery stores, empty shelves left and right. You've got tight quarters. You have very little land for preparation and growing crops and food, unless you live up in like New York State. But if you were living in New York City, it's very difficult for you to prep. You may have an apartment that you're probably paying $3,000-$4,000 a month for, which is probably a 2-bedroom apartment with like no square footage and no land. So the best you could do is try to like hang some crops off the edge of the balcony if you have one, and attempt to grow a small stash of fruits or vegetables or whatever. So you got all these people in this tight space and limited natural resources. That creates a panic. Which is why a lot of people moved out of New York. A lot of people moving out of certain cities and towns that proved to be less desirable once this whole pandemic hit. That's a whole nother story though. But there's this growing form of debt that is coming out, and a lot of people are completely unprepared for what's happening, and people are trapping themselves and they don't even realize it. There was this quote, I forget how it goes. It's something like, "You will own nothing and be happy," or something like that. Anyway, I don't know. But I'm seeing more and more of this come into play. And I think it was actually a rather old quote. But the buy now, pay later, also known as the BNPL, is basically this rapidly growing, controversial way of paying for things going forward. And it's this way for consumers to essentially borrow money to pay for goods and services. And, a lot of people actually calling this like the Gen Z credit card. And a lot of Gen Z people that I've encountered, not saying that it's like all Gen Z people, but it's a lot of Gen Z people are finding that financial security is rather difficult to attain, more so than previous generations. I remember my grandparents told me that they bought their house for like $30,000. And that was like back in 1940 or 1950. And it's just crazy to think that you could possibly have bought a house for $30,000. Unbelievable. But then that's probably around the time when you probably could have gotten gas for like 30 cents or a nickel, for all I know. But anyway, so this is just the evolution of our financial economy. And if you're not prepared, you're gonna get swallowed up. Now, the question is, why does this matter? Well, this whole buy now, pay later industry, it really has yet to be tested through an economic downturn. And this next recession that we're expecting, And when it comes, it could put a lot of strain on borrowers that are depending on systems like this. If you have to rely on a buy now, pay later system, then more than likely you really need to evaluate your financial situation, because if you have to do that, all you need is one hiccup in your paycheck, all you need is a layoff notice, and you and your family could be in a very difficult situation. And I know, regardless of how much you're prepping, I don't care if you're prepping 24 hours a day, if you're not prepping financially, you're not ready. Plain and simple. You can have your whole pantry full, and enough food and supplies, generators to survive 2 years. But if you can't pay for the place where you live, you're screwed. So let's not sleep on the whole economic preparedness. Now, this whole buy now, pay later basically emerged as one of the most convenient, or at least it's advertised as being one of the most convenient online mechanisms for people without credit cards. Because remember, a lot of the Gen Z people, and it's not even isolated to Gen Z, many people struggle with credit. And it's another one of those tools in our society where if you're not aware of how to build your credit and repair your credit and keep it in good, pristine condition, life is a whole lot harder for you. It makes your insurance payments more expensive for your home, insurance for your car. Some companies won't hire you if you don't have a certain credit standing. So having good credit is very powerful, and it's also debilitating if you don't. But again, it's one of those things where it doesn't have to be that way. You can improve that. And speaking of that, I'm doing my best to get back to you guys in email. You guys have been reaching out to me about how to fix your credit, how to improve your credit, how to boost your credit score, and how to learn how to make money online, asking me about side hustles. So I'm seeing your emails. There's just a lot of emails coming through, and I don't type very fast, so I'm doing my best to get through them. But I'm gonna get through them, and I may actually just kind of jump on here, maybe read some of your emails out loud, and attempt to answer and dissect them on a video, because I know a lot of you guys have this, similar questions. So maybe I can help more people at once, basically. Now, credit, it's really important. I mean, look at the mortgage industry. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates to attempt to get a handle on this inflation. And what that did was it increased the mortgage rates. And the last I saw, we were seeing mortgage rates of 5.6, as high as 6.28%. I saw at one point. Now, the scary part is this is assuming you have excellent credit, and excellent credit to me is like 740 credit score and higher. You don't have to have an 850 credit score. Not required. But you do need to have good credit. Otherwise, everything becomes harder for you. Everything becomes more expensive for you. Having bad credit is actually a tax if you think about it. Think about it for a second, right? So if you have good credit, you go out and go buy, used car. I know there's supply chain problems right now still with the used car market, even with the new car market. But when you go to this dealership, when you go to a dealership to buy a car, let's just say your car has got 250,000 miles and it's on its last leg. You need to trade your car in. You're desperate. You need a new car. You got to get to point A to point B. So you go to a dealership. They pull your credit score. If you were unprepared, you find out that you got bad credit when you're at the dealership, or maybe you knew, but still lack of preparedness. But so you got bad credit, for example, and now they're saying, hey, we can approve you, but we're going to ask for $2,000 down payment, and your car payment will be $650. How about $700? Since the average car payment in America right now is $700. So that's because you got bad credit. Now, let's just pretend you prepared and in advance you cleaned up your credit. You reached out and contacted all your previous creditors. Everything is perfect now. You have a 740 credit score. Everything's cleaned up, and this can be done. In fact, I know several people who have done it, And yeah. So anyway, we know how to do it. I know how to do it. It's been done a million times. So you can fix your credit. So let's just pretend a year later, you go into that same dealership, trade your car in, they pull your credit, they approve you for this car loan, and they're saying to you that, and it's the same car loan, it's the same amount of the car loan, and they're saying that your car payment's like $575 for the same car, for the same amount. Why? Well, the interest rate. The interest rate has a huge deal, or has a huge impact on how much you're going to pay. And so when you have bad credit is literally a tax on your finances. So by having bad credit, you're overpaying. And you want to talk about inflation? You're going to face hyperinflation before anyone else when you have bad credit. And so, when we're seeing interest rates in the mortgage area, and I don't, whether or not we're going to see a housing market crash or not, that remains to be seen, but the housing market is certainly changing. But when you go to a lender and the lender says, hey, let's pull your credit. If you had a 740 credit score or higher, you might get that 5.75% interest rate for that home. But that's if you had great credit. Well, if you don't have great credit, you might get an interest rate of, say, 6.5, maybe even 7%, maybe even 7.5%. So everything is way more expensive when you're unprepared, when you find yourself in a situation where you have bad credit. So, in terms of being properly prepared and prepping, you have to account for financial preparation, economic preparation. And just think about it. As a prepper, we know how expensive this is. You're buying generators, you're buying excess food, you're buying excess toilet paper, excess cleaning supplies, medical supplies. You're buying so much stuff at inflated rates, mind you, 9.1% CPI inflation right now. So to prepare and to prep, you're adding on top of this cost by having higher insurance rates because your credit's not great, having a higher mortgage payment because your credit's not good, having a higher rent payment because your credit's not good. Everything is more expensive. Your credit card interest rates will be higher. Mortgage rate will be higher. Everything's higher. You may not be able to earn as much money because the job you wanted to get didn't hire you because your credit wasn't high enough. So credit's super duper important, and whether you want to admit it or not, it's affecting you, and it's affecting your prep and your ability to stretch your dollars further to properly prep. So, this whole buy now, pay later evolution of debt is really alarming, especially since more and more of these businesses, they're realizing how profitable it is to lend money to less than credit worthy individuals, and they're creating massive profits off of this. You want to talk about new businesses that are emerging as a result of this economic evolution that we're seeing. We're seeing a collapse, right, in certain areas, but in the midst of this collapse, it's creating a number of different opportunities, and businesses are realizing this. Entrepreneurs are realizing that, hey, there's a demand for certain things, and so they will do their best to provide supply where the demand is. And in this case, there's a lack of financial backing to people with poor credit, so they'll extend that backing, charge them 20%, 30% interest rates, and depending upon the city and the state and the municipality where the company is based and where the borrower is based, you may see as high as 200% interest. If your stock market yields 10 to 15% annual gains on average, but you can lend money out to a less than credit worthy individual and hit 200% in returns, that's a phenomenal business. And they're scaling these businesses. So anyway, I just wanted to share this information with you guys. We talk about prepping and getting ready for the economic collapse or the evolution of our society, and economic preparation is paramount. So if you made it this far in this video, drop a like for the video, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.